Hi, I'm Amy. Welcome to the video. Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to be doing a 3-day wear test on the Uoma Beauty Foundation and Concealer. So I got the shade White Pearl T2N, and I got the shade White Pearl T1 here. And as soon as I got these, I was like, pretty sure that this concealer is darker than this foundation. So I don't know if you can tell, but I have swatched it. So let me show you. There are only 2 concealers lighter than this, but there are, I think, 4 or 5 shades of foundation lighter than this. This is the foundation in White Pearl T2N and the concealer in White Pearl T1. Now, as you can see, the foundation is a little bit more neutral leaning yellow, and the concealer is more neutral leaning like peachy pink. I really like the shade of the concealer actually. I wish it was lighter, just the same tone, and I do wish the neutral foundation was a bit more neutral. But since the concealer is a bit darker, I'm going to put the concealer on first, and that will help us see like the coverage of the concealer and then the foundation. So let me get set up and then I will be right back and we'll get into it. But let's start with the concealer, and I always blend my concealer in with a sponge, and that is the e.l.f. sponge. So I'm going to use the sponge for that. Now it does have a big doe foot, but this one's like a little bit, I don't know, more flexible than a lot that I have used. And I'm gonna do one side at a time so we can see the coverage, and I'll do just a little bit. So I'm gonna just do my Robert Welsh technique that I don't ever do, and then also a little dot for there. So that is one thin layer, and it is very skin-like, and it blends into my cheek very well. I think I could totally wear it like this without any foundation and not have an issue. I might cover up my redness a little bit in here, but the texture of it is really nice. The coverage here like this is, I would say, low medium. It's not sheer, and it is covering a lot of the darkness and the redness, but you can definitely still see the gray tone shadow of my dark circle under there. So I'm going to go back in with a little bit more, and I'm going to focus it on the curve of that under eye bag. Just like so. And I am going to try to let that sit for a second. While it sits, let's go ahead and read what this box says. Let's see. Brightening concealer. Stay woke. Discoloration, dark circles, late nights, early mornings. Meet your all-day solution to a flawless complexion. This weightless, full coverage satin radiance concealer goes on seamlessly to instantly conceal imperfections. I definitely think it's weightless. It's very lightweight. I don't feel it. It's kind of creamy, but it's kind of thin also, so it's not like sticky or heavy feeling at all. And I definitely think it is satin and radiant. It looks like my skin. This is just moisturized skin. Nothing else is on this. And it's got the same kind of reflect as my skin. So I would say that it's definitely skin-like, satin radiant, but I don't know about full coverage. Let's see. Now that we've given this a few seconds to blend in, or to kind of set and hopefully give us more coverage. So that is 2 layers, and I've let it sit there for like 30 seconds for the second layer. I do think now I'm getting like high medium coverage, but I still would not call this full coverage, but maybe it's because it's not matte and I'm used to full coverage being matte. but it's still, I can still see the gray, but it is sitting underneath my eye really beautifully, and I do like the texture and the like radiance that it gives. It's not like shiny glowy like some. It's very, very skin-like, so I do like that. Let's go ahead and do the other side. And this time I'm gonna just go a little bit more ham, and I'm gonna add a little bit more to here. I actually think that I might have gotten better coverage on this side where I just went in with a bigger layer from the beginning than trying to layer it up. I'm gonna let it dry down a little bit because you can see this side's way more radiant right now than this side. But I think that might be the ticket for this one, is if you want fuller coverage, put it on right away, because as you can see, this side, I'm looking in the mirror over here, like this side looks more natural, this side looks more brightened. So that's my take on that concealer, but I do really like the way it's looking so far. And I can hear it is quite thin. Weightless Soft Matte Hydrating Foundation. Yeah, so I'm gonna put this on the back of my hand instead of directly onto the sponge, because it will probably just soak it all up that way. So I want to give you, that's one pump, and as you can see, it's quite thin. It's not the thinnest foundation that I've ever tried, but it is quite thin. So I'm going to start out with the sponge on this side of my face. The color looks pretty good to my neck, I think, from here at least. And putting it over top of the concealer, I feel like it looks fine. It doesn't look super dark around my eye. And working off of my hand, I feel like it's not soaking into the sponge too much, but I have used a full pump on this side of my hand so far. So I did 2 pumps. This is what's left. I do see a little bit of redness right here, which I feel like is pretty hard for most foundations to cover up, but I feel like my acne scarring looks pretty good. It's not fully opaquely covered, but it's pretty covered there. So I have a few little dry areas right here where it looks like it's clinging a little bit. And maybe a little bit right here. Oh, and the tip of my nose for sure. But the tip of my nose is like peel central. I don't know why, it just like loves to peel. I think it looks pretty good. Let's go in with the brush side. I'm gonna use what's left on my hand first. That way we can see. For the sponge, by the way, I used my e.l.f. sponge. I don't know if I mentioned that. And for the brush side, I'm using this crown brush. It's just a foundation brush. I don't know what it's actually called. And then, yeah, what was left on my hand was definitely not enough to give me anything. This would be like a super light coverage if I just did like half a pump. So, I mean, you could definitely do like a super sheer layer and just even out your skin tone if you wanted. But I am going to put a little more, see if we can reach this level. Now that's not because the brush is more sheer. That's because, well, it might be, but that also is because I just did not use the same amount of product on the brush. I definitely prefer the sponge side because it helped me to blend my under eye in better and like the edges of my hair. And it's not this brush because I like this brush, but I just really prefer sponges. And this is such a thin formula that I think like it's like holding the texture of the brush a bit. I don't know if you can see this, but this is definitely picking up on way more texture and dryness, and it looks like crackly desert. So I'm gonna go over it with my sponge a little bit and see if that helps. I don't think that the coverage was any different between the two, really. It just depends, I guess, on your skin and preferred technique. I always prefer a sponge. It still looks very, very dry here. Adjustable coverage. For medium coverage, use sparsely. For full coverage, use generously. For extreme coverage, apply multiple layers. Say bye-bye to one-size-fits-all formulation. Weightless, long-lasting, adjustable coverage, hydrating foundation, formulated just for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my makeup, and we'll see how everything else applies on it. Hi, I definitely meant to come back sooner, but I filmed this look and swatched everything from Pat McGrath that I own pretty much. So that took a really long time, and then I was hungry, so I ate lunch. So it is now actually almost 2 o'clock, and I put this on at like 9:30. So this is actually kind of like a midday check-in instead of a right after I put makeup on. I tried both creams and powders. I put on cream contour and bronzer and highlight, and then I put powder all over my face and everything. So this is how it looks now after quite a few hours. I mean, I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing, but I'm like peeling my skin off. I mean, maybe that's a my skin thing, but not every foundation does this. So, and it's not that it's peeling my skin, but it's making my already dry, peely skin want to peel, if that makes sense. But there are areas that it looks good. Like I think it looks really good across my cheek, which doesn't have anything going on. I feel like it's worn off a little bit on my nose, and you can definitely see the dry patches there. You can definitely see dryness in here and around my head here. But I did watch some reviews on this, or first impressions, and a lot of people were saying like, this is actually really dewy and skin-like, even though it says it's matte. And I feel like in the camera, or at least what I'm seeing of the camera, it does look way more radiant than it looks in person. Like in person, it doesn't look dry necessarily, but it does look matte. It looks matte. It has like a tiny bit of creaminess to it, but I wouldn't even say radiance. Like creamy matte. It's like a creamy matte to me. So I don't know. That is how I feel right now after 5 hours of wear on the first day. I will see you in a few days with my final thoughts over the last 3 days. I'm really curious to see if I like this more or less by the end of this. Okay guys, I have been wearing the Uoma Beauty foundation and concealer over the last week, and I have some thoughts. So the first day that I wore this, I did think that it looked really nice, but it was a lot more matte than what I was thinking based on other people's reviews. And I don't know if I mentioned that my skin has been getting a lot more dry recently. So I don't know if it was really just like, if you have very dry skin, then this foundation is matte, or if it's just matte, meaning this color lid is matte, because I did notice that a lot of the reviews I was watching are in the Fair Ladies section and not in the White Pearl section, so the blue lid. And I did hear Taylor Wynn say saying that she tried both the blue cap and the purple cap, and she preferred the blue cap. Sorry, my window's open. Listen to the birds. It's fall. I have this little thing on and the window's open and it feels so good. It's like 53 degrees out. Ooh, love it. Anyways, back to my thoughts. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is just the end of day one. I didn't think it was the worst foundation I had ever put on. It just wasn't exciting to me. It didn't do anything extra for me. And then on day two, what I'm going to show you the next day, I just wore the concealer over my face, nothing else. And here is the before and after of that. So like I mentioned, this color is a little bit darker. It does match more of like my actual skin instead of being like a highlighting under eye shade. So I really enjoyed this all over my skin. And as you can see, by the end of the day, I still look very hydrated and glowy, and there wasn't anything too terrible going on with it. Now that is what I'm wearing today, just the concealer. I'm not wearing the foundation today. I do just have the concealer on today. And again, I just really like the way that this concealer looks. As I mentioned though, it is not full coverage under the eyes. So what I did today is I used the Becca under eye corrector thing, brightening under eye, and I do think that it helped me to cover my under eyes because this isn't full coverage, but I do like the medium coverage all over the rest of my face and the way that it performs on my face and the finish of it a lot better. I like the concealer better than the foundation. Okay, so on the third day, actually, instead of wearing the Uoma products, what I did was I went back to my ColourPop foundation because I have mentioned that I just thought, you know, no foundation is ever going to compare to this. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm like hyping it up in my head. So I wanted to wear it right next to each other. So I wore the ColourPop foundation. And as you can see, it has pretty much the same, it is a little bit more dewy, but I'm having the same issues of like the peely skin. So I think that what's happening is my skin is just really dry and kind of going through it right now. So I don't think anything that's not uber like hydrating and emollient isn't going to really set down all of that flakiness. And as you can see here, I have a close-up right here. I believe this was the third day that I wore it, but I had like my skin was actually flaking off. So I know there's supposed to be some sort of like skincare in this formula. So I'm wondering if it's something that's either drying my skin out or kind of exfoliating my skin. And then I'm ending up with like, look at what it looked like on my chin after one of the days. Like it was like broken up and I just felt like the coverage didn't stay there because my skin was peeling off. So I just, it's not for me right now in my skin cycle of what's going on, but I am interested to continue to try it as my skin changes. And like I said, my number one favorite foundation up to this point has been that ColourPop one, and it was kind of more dry and picked up on those patches as well. So I'm not fully faulting the foundation. I do think that my skin is just going through something, but as you can see, the concealer here looks beautiful on my skin. So I do think that there is like possibility for something to look good on my skin. So I don't want to just cop out and say, well, nothing's going to look good on my skin, so this foundation doesn't look good and it's not the foundation's fault. I do think there's a difference between the concealer and the foundation, and the foundation is a lot more dry to my skin. If you're interested in the details of what's on my face, I did a full face of new makeup on the face. I will link it here. And then I also did do a recreating Raw Beauty Christie's go-to look with her new palette here on my eyes, and I will link that here. I think both of those should be up before this video, so if you're interested in my makeup details, check out those videos. Overall, for the foundation, I think I'm gonna give this like a 6 out of 10 because I do think there is potential for this, but there's something about what's going on with my skin and this foundation that really just don't jive. I'm gonna have to look into the ingredients and see if I'm right about that either drying ingredient or exfoliating ingredient in the formulation. So I don't know if I can recommend this yet. I would say go ahead and go try to find some other other reviews on the purple lid, which I did find hard, but I highly recommend the concealer. I think this is swiftly moving up to the top for me, and not even as a concealer, but as a foundation. I think it's beautiful on my skin. And like I said in that video, it doesn't have a lot of coverage for underneath the eyes, but with a brightener or mixed with another concealer, maybe like a more full coverage concealer mixed in with it underneath the eyes that is a little bit lighter, so I'm getting that brightened effect, which I'm so pale I don't feel like I need. But I do highly recommend this. Again, I'm in the shade T1 for the concealer, and that's more of a face shade. And I have the shade White Pearl T2N. And like I mentioned, these are, like, I do think that the foundation is a little bit lighter than the concealer. So I would recommend, if you are White Pearl T2N or fairer, to just go ahead and get the most fair of the concealer if you want a more brightened look. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me so much. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!